There comes a moment when heaven grows quiet, not because nothing is happening, but because something holy is about to be released. A moment when the noise fades, when the storm that once shook your soul lowers its voice into a whisper strong enough to change everything. And this whisper isn't for your ears. It's for your spirit. Because right now, God is speaking. Not loudly, not forcefully, but with authority. And the enemy has done everything possible to make sure you never hear this truth. Your struggle was not meant to last forever. The pain tried to silence you. The delay tried to convince you it was permanent. Your circumstances tried to bury the promise. But God declares, this season has an end. Not because you earned it, not because you proved yourself, but because mercy has spoken. And when mercy speaks, time obeys. God still reigns, and no season survives past his command. You may have walked through long nights. You may have stood in valleys so deep, you wondered if light still existed. But listen closely. Dawn is breaking. Not gradually, not eventually, but now. What afflicted you has completed its assignment. What wounded you has exhausted its power. What tried to break you has only revealed how deeply God reinforced you. The tears you cried were not wasted. They watered the ground. And now the harvest begins. Because when God speaks, chains respond. Seas move. Seasons shift. This isn't a discussion. This isn't a suggestion. This is a declaration. Your suffering has an expiration date, and heaven has circled today. What was sent to destroy you ended up refining you. What was meant to erase you ended up exposing God's strength in you. People may have walked away. Doors may have closed without explanation. But understand this. God never left. He saw every tear fall. He counted every restless night. He heard every prayer you whispered, and every one you stopped praying because you were tired. What you called silence was strategy. What you thought was delay was preparation. And now God steps forward, not from a distance, but close enough to lift what crushed you. He reaches into the ashes of what was and breathes fire into what's coming. God is not chaotic. He is precise. He is the master of seasons. And the season ahead of you will not be defined by what you lost, but by what you're about to receive. Your waiting was not empty. Your isolation was not pointless. Every second of pressure was measured. Seeds were being stored. Roots were growing underground. And now, the rain is coming. The drought is ending. The atmosphere is shifting. This is not a funeral. This is a resurrection. God is calling life into places you buried. He is restoring faith where exhaustion lived. He is breathing hope into parts of you. You stopped checking on. You are not at the end. You are at the turn. God doesn't wait for perfection. He steps into ruins. He doesn't require strength. He moves in weakness. And when you finally reach the end of yourself, that's where his power begins. Not because you're strong, but because he is. He isn't impressed by effort. He responds to surrender. And if you can receive this, if you can believe that God is speaking over your life, then understand this. The shift has already started. Not by emotion, not by hype, but because God does not lie. When he says it's over, it's over. When he closes a chapter, no one reopens it. You walked through fire and survived. You crossed floods and stood. And now you step into peace. Not peace that makes sense, but peace that settles your soul. You may not know what's next, but you know who holds tomorrow. And if God brought you this far, he is not finished. What he starts, he completes. What he promises, he fulfills. And what he allows to test you will never be allowed to terminate you. You didn't survive by accident. You didn't endure because you were lucky. You are still standing because God has been sustaining you, even when you didn't feel Him, even when you questioned everything. There were moments you almost gave up, moments you smiled on the outside, but felt empty within, moments when continuing forward felt harder than quitting. But something kept you moving, something kept you breathing, something kept you holding on. When logic said, let go, that wasn't willpower, that was grace. God doesn't waste endurance. He doesn't preserve what has no purpose. If you're still here, it's because your assignment is still active. And hear this clearly. The resistance increased because you are getting closer. Opposition always intensifies. Right before elevation, the enemy only fights what threatens his territory. You weren't attacked because you're weak. You were targeted because you're dangerous to the plans meant to keep you small. The pressure you felt was not meant to crush you. It was meant to shape you. Like clay in the hands of the potter, you were pressed, turned, reshaped, not to break your form, but to refine it. And now you're emerging with clarity, with discernment, with a strength that doesn't panic, and a faith that doesn't shake. You no longer beg for validation. You no longer chase approval. You no longer move out of fear. Because what God is building in you now is rooted. This next season won't require striving. It will require trust. God is removing the need to prove yourself because He's about to confirm you. The doors ahead won't open by force. They'll open by alignment. What's meant for you will recognize you, and what isn't will fall away without explanation. Do not mourn what leaves. Do not chase what exits. Do not question what God removes. If it cannot follow you forward, it cannot remain. You are stepping into a phase where discernment matters more than speed, obedience matters more than applause, and peace matters more than approval. This is not a season to rush. This is a season to move with purpose. God is not asking you to run blindly. He is asking you to walk confidently. One step, one decision, one act of faith at a time. And even when the path isn't fully visible, the next step will always be illuminated. Because God doesn't reveal the whole road. He reveals just enough to keep you dependent on Him. And that dependence is where power flows. You don't need to know everything. You don't need to have it all figured out. You only need to stay connected. Connected to truth. Connected to prayer. Connected to the quiet voice that says, keep going. The version of you that doubted could not carry what's coming. The version of you that broke could not steward what's ahead. That's why God rebuilt you slowly, carefully, intentionally. You weren't delayed. You were being fortified. And now, as you stand at this threshold, don't look back with regret. Look back with gratitude. You survived what should have ended you. You learned what pain tried to hide. You grew where comfort never could. And now you move forward, not desperate, not fearful, not uncertain, but ready. Because if God brought you this far, He is not finished. He's just getting started.